The ground shook as another explosion lit up the dark sky of Zarian Prime. Smoke filled the air, thick and black, carrying the smell of burned metal and worse things. In a deep crater near the edge of the battlefield, something moved. Kethvar tried to lift his head, but pain shot through his body like lightning. His vision was blurry, but he could see enough. 3 of his 4 arms were twisted at wrong angles. His legs would not move. The blue blood that flowed through his veins was pooling beneath him, glowing softly in the darkness. He had been fighting the Devourers for 6 hours straight. His unit, the elite Crimson Spears, had been holding the line when the enemy broke through. The creatures were like living nightmares, black twisted things that ate everything in their path. They had no honor, no mercy. They just consumed. The last thing Kethvar remembered was the ground exploding under his feet. A Devourer bomb had landed right next to him. His armor, made from the strongest crystals of his homeworld, had cracked like an eggshell. Now he lay broken in this hole, waiting to die. Above him he heard the sound of retreat. His people were pulling back. The order had been given. The Zephyrians were warriors, proud and strong, but they were not stupid. When a position could not be held, they left. It was the way. Kethvar listened as the footsteps of his brothers grew distant. He understood. This was how it had always been. The wounded who could not fight were left to die with honor. It was better than being a burden to the living. Better than slowing down the retreat and getting others killed. His squad leader, Vothrim, had looked down at him for just a moment before moving on. Kethvar had seen the pain in the older warrior's eyes. They had fought together for 30 years. But duty came first, always. "I understand, brother," Kethvar had whispered, though he was not sure if Vothrim had heard him. Now the battlefield was quiet except for the distant sounds of the retreating army. The Devourers would come soon to claim their prize. They would eat everything they found, the dead, the wounded, even the metal and stone. Nothing was safe from their hunger. Kethvar closed his eyes and began the death song his mother had taught him so long ago. It was an old song, sung in the ancient language of his people. It spoke of honor and duty, of a life well lived, of the eternal light that waited beyond death. His voice was weak, but the words came easily. He had sung this song for many fallen comrades over his 847 years of life. He had never thought he would sing it for himself. "Stars that shine in endless night," he sang softly, "guide my spirit to the light. Let my deeds in battle told earn a place among the bold." A sound made him stop. Something was moving nearby. Metal scraping against stone. The Devourers had found him already. Kethvar tried to reach for his weapon, but his arms would not obey. He would have to face death without a blade in his hand. The shame of it burned worse than his wounds. But the sound was wrong. Devourers moved differently. They scuttled and crawled like giant insects. This sounded like footsteps. Heavy boots on broken ground. Kethvar opened his eyes and saw a shape moving at the edge of the crater. It was small compared to a Zephyrian warrior, but it moved with purpose. As it came closer, he could see it was wearing coalition armor, but not Zephyrian armor. The design was different, simpler, cruder. The figure jumped down into the crater and Kethvar got his first clear look. It was a human. A female human, he thought, though it was hard to tell with their kind. She had dark skin and short black hair. Her armor was scratched and dented, marked with the red cross that meant she was a medic. Kethvar had heard of humans but had never seen one up close. They were new to the galaxy, barely past their first 100 years in space. Most of the other species saw them as primitive, useful in a fight but lacking in wisdom or culture. The human was looking at him with wide eyes. She said something in her own language, words that sounded harsh and quick. Then she switched to Galactic Standard, the common tongue used by all coalition forces. "Holy, you're hurt bad," she said. Her accent was thick, making some words hard to understand. "Don't worry, I'm going to help you." Kethvar tried to speak but only managed a weak croak. The human came closer, pulling a medical scanner from her pack. She ran it over his body and Kethvar could see her face grow pale as she read the results. "No," Kethvar finally managed to say. "Leave me, it is..." "The way?" The human looked confused. "The way? What way?" "You're wounded. I'm a medic." "This is what I do. I am..." "Dying," Kethvar said. Each word was painful. "It brings honor. Do not interfere." The human sat back on her heels and stared at him. For a moment, Kethvar thought she might understand, but then she shook her head. "Sorry, big guy. That's not how this works. She started pulling medical supplies from her pack. Nobody dies on my watch if I can help it. That's not the human way. Kethavar wanted to protest. This small creature was violating everything sacred about Zephyrian death, but he was too weak to stop her. He could only watch as she began to work on his wounds. Her hands were small but steady. She cleaned his cuts and checked his broken bones with surprising gentleness. When she found the worst wound, a deep gash across his chest where his armor had cracked, she made a soft sound of concern. "This is bad," she said, more to herself than to him. "Real bad. But I've seen worse." She looked at him with eyes that were both kind and determined. "I'm Maria, by the way. Maria Santos, Staff Sergeant, 3rd Medical Division." Kethavar did not know what to say. In his culture, only blood relatives would risk themselves to help the dying. Yet this stranger, this human he had never met, was treating him like family. "Why?" he asked. Maria paused in her work and looked at him. "Why what?" "Why help? I am—" "Nothing to you." Maria was quiet for a long moment. Then she went back to work on his wounds. "Because you're hurt," she said simply. "Because you're a soldier like me. Because it's the right thing to do." She glanced up at him. "Because that's what humans do. We don't leave people behind." Above them, the sound of aircraft filled the sky. Devourer scouts looking for survivors. Maria looked up with worry in her eyes. They would need to move soon. But first she had to stop him from bleeding to death. Kethavar watched this strange little human work and felt something he had never experienced before. Confusion mixed with gratitude mixed with shame. She was risking her life for him, a wounded enemy of her enemies, someone she had never met and would probably never see again if she was smart. It made no sense. But as her steady hands continued to patch his broken body, Kethavar began to think that maybe sense was not always the most important thing. Maybe sometimes the heart knew better than the mind. Maria Santos had been in worse situations than this, but not many. She was separated from her unit, low on supplies, and now she was trying to save an alien warrior who weighed about 400 pounds and seemed determined to die with honor. Just another day in the Coalition Army. She had been following the sound of gunfire when she found him. Her squad had been separated during the retreat, and Maria was trying to catch up when she heard the Zephyrian singing in the crater. Something about his voice, so sad and accepting, had made her stop and look. Now she was committed. Maria never left a patient behind. It did not matter if they were human, alien, or some weird mix of both. If they were hurt, she helped them. That was her job. More than that, it was who she was. The big alien, Kethavar, he had said his name was, kept trying to tell her to leave. His English was broken, mixed with words from his own language, but she got the idea. He wanted to die here. Something about honor and tradition. Maria understood honor. She came from a military family. Her father had been a Marine, her grandfather before him. But she also understood that sometimes honor was stupid. Sometimes the right thing to do was the thing that broke the rules. "Stop moving," she told Kethavar as she worked on his chest wound. "You're making this harder." The Zephyrian was huge, even lying down. His skin was a pale blue-green color that reminded Maria of sea glass. He had 4 arms, though 3 of them were badly broken. His face was longer than a human's, with large eyes that glowed softly in the dark. Those eyes were watching her every move. "You should not be here," Kethavar said. His voice was deep, like distant thunder. "It is dangerous." "No kidding," Maria said. She could hear the Devourer aircraft getting closer. "But here I am anyway." She finished sealing the chest wound and moved on to his arms. "Tell me about these injuries. What happened?" Kethavar was quiet for a moment. Then he began to speak slowly, choosing his words carefully in Galactic Standard. He told her about the battle, about how his unit had been overrun, about the bomb that had broken his body and left him here to die. As he talked, Maria worked. She had trained on human anatomy, but the basics were the same. Stop the bleeding. Stabilize the bones. Keep the patient alive long enough to get real help. She had medical scanners that helped, but mostly she relied on experience and instinct. "Your people," Maria said as she set a broken bone in his arm. "They really just left you here?" Kethavar's large eyes blinked slowly. "It is the way. The wounded who cannot fight are a burden. They slow the retreat, get others killed. That's—" Maria stopped herself from saying what she really thought. Different cultures, different rules, but it still made her angry. That's not how humans do it. How do humans do it? Maria thought about that as she worked. We have a saying, leave no one behind. It means we never abandon our people, ever. If you're hurt, we carry you. If you're lost, we find you. If you're captured, we come for you. She looked at Kethavar's glowing eyes. Even if it costs us, Kethavar was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. This is why you help me? Because I am your people? Maria paused. Was he her people? He was coalition, fighting the same enemy. But more than that, he was a soldier, hurt and abandoned. That was enough. Yeah, she said. I guess you are. The sound of the aircraft was getting louder. Maria looked around the crater, thinking fast. They needed to move, but Kethavar was too badly hurt to walk, and she was not strong enough to carry him, even with her powered armor helping. There's a coalition bunker about half a mile from here, she said. Abandoned, but it should have medical supplies. Can you move? Kethavar tried to sit up and immediately fell back with a sound of pain. I do not think so. Maria looked at her medical pack. She had 1 dose of combat stimulants left. It would mask his pain and give him strength for a few hours, but it was dangerous, especially for an alien. She had no idea how his body would react. The aircraft were circling now, looking for survivors. I'm going to give you something, she said, pulling out the stimulant injector. It's going to hurt, and I don't know how it will affect you. But it should get you moving. Kethavar looked at the injector, then at her face. You would risk killing me to save me? I'd risk anything to save you, Maria said, and meant it. That's what we do. She found a spot on his neck where the blood vessels were close to the surface and pressed the injector against his skin. Kethavar jerked as the drugs hit his system, then went very still. For a moment, Maria thought she had killed him. Then his eyes opened wide and he sat up in one smooth motion. That is unusual, he said. His voice was stronger now, though Maria could see him shaking slightly. Can you walk? Kethavar got to his feet, moving carefully. He was unsteady but upright. Yes, for now. Maria grabbed her pack and helped him climb out of the crater. The bunker was across open ground, through the ruins of what had been a small town. The Devourer aircraft were still hunting, their searchlights sweeping back and forth across the battlefield. Stay low, Maria whispered. Move when I move. Stop when I stop. They made their way across the broken landscape like ghosts. Maria led, using her training to avoid the searching lights. Kethavar followed, his large form surprisingly quiet for someone so injured. Twice they had to hide as Devourer patrol craft passed overhead. Both times Maria found herself pressed against the alien warrior in whatever cover they could find. She could feel his heart beating fast and strong, could smell the strange, clean scent of his blood. He was so different from humans, bigger, stronger, with skin that felt like warm stone. But when she looked in his eyes, she saw something familiar. Fear, pain, determination, the same things she would see in any soldier's eyes. They reached the bunker just as the stimulants began to wear off. Kethavar stumbled and nearly fell as Maria opened the heavy door. Inside, emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. Medical bay should be through here, Maria said, helping him walk. The bunker was small but well-equipped. Coalition standard design. She found the medical bay and helped Kethavar lie down on one of the beds. Why do you do this? He asked as she began setting up the medical equipment. I am not human. Not even close. Maria looked at him, this huge alien warrior who had been left to die by his own people, who accepted it as honor, who could not understand why she would risk everything to save him. Because you matter, she said simply. Because every life matters. Because if we don't take care of each other, who will? Kethavar closed his glowing eyes. Your people are very strange, Maria Santos. Maria smiled as she began the real work of keeping him alive. Yeah, we get that a lot. Outside, she could hear the Devourers moving through the ruins, hunting. Soon they would find the bunker. But for now, she had work to do. She had a life to save. And nothing in the galaxy was going to stop her. The medical equipment in the bunker was basic, but it was better than nothing. Maria worked through the night, using every trick she had learned in her 8 years as a combat medic. Kethavar drifted in and out of consciousness as she repaired the damage to his body. His physiology was different from humans, but not as different as she had feared. 4 hearts instead of 1, but they pumped the same blue blood through similar vessels. Bones that were denser and stronger, but they broke and healed the same way. His nervous system was more complex, which explained why he was still alive with injuries that would have killed a human. You are Stubborn creature, Keithavar said during one of his waking moments. His voice was weak but clearer than before. Me? Maria looked up from where she was working on his leg. You're the one who wanted to die in a hole. It was proper, honorable. Maria shook her head. Honor doesn't keep you alive. Medicine does. Keithavar watched her work with those strange, glowing eyes. Tell me about your world. This Earth, Maria smiled. It had been a long time since anyone had asked her about home. It's beautiful. Blue skies, green forest, great big oceans. My family has a farm in a place called Iowa. Corn as far as you can see. Corn? Food, a plant we grow. Yellow kernels on long stalks. She realized how strange it must sound to an alien. What's your world like? Zephyr is a world of crystal cities and floating mountains, Keithavar said. His eyes grew distant. The air sings with the music of the wind, and the light of our twin suns makes everything shine like jewels. Sounds pretty. It is. I have not seen it for 60 years. I have been fighting the Devourers since they first appeared in our galaxy. Maria paused in her work. 60 years? How old are you? 847 of your years. Maria whistled softly. And I thought my dad was old at 70. She went back to setting his bones. What's it like? Living that long? Keithavar was quiet for a moment. Lonely. You watch entire generations of shorter-lived species grow up and die. You make friends and lose them. After a while you stop making friends. Is that why your people leave the wounded behind? Because individual lives don't matter as much when you live so long? Perhaps. Or perhaps it is because we have been warriors for so long that we have forgotten how to be anything else. Outside, something howled in the darkness. The Devourers were getting closer. Maria checked the bunker's security systems. The doors were locked and the walls were thick, but the creatures were persistent. They would find a way in eventually. We need to talk about what happens next, she said, sitting down next to the medical bed. The Devourers are going to find this place. When they do, we'll have to fight. Keithavar tried to sit up, wincing with pain. I can fight? Give me a weapon. You can barely sit up, and you're missing 3 arms. I have 1 good arm. That is enough for a plasma rifle. Maria looked at him. Even broken and dying, he was thinking about battle. It was admirable and terrifying at the same time. Okay, but we do this smart. I'll set up defensive positions while you rest. When they come, you provide covering fire while I move. Think you can do that? Yes, but Maria! Keithavar's voice was serious. When they break through, you must run. Do not try to save me again. Not happening. You do not understand. The Devourers will torture you before they kill you. They feed on fear and pain. I have seen what they do to prisoners. Maria looked him in the eye. And you don't understand. I don't abandon people, ever. We fight together or we die together. Those are the only options. Keithavar stared at her for a long moment. You truly are insane. Yeah, probably, Maria grinned. But it works for me. She spent the next few hours setting up defenses. The bunker had a small armory with coalition weapons and explosives. Maria placed charges at key points, set up overlapping fields of fire, and prepared fallback positions. It was not much, but it was better than nothing. Keithavar watched her work, offering suggestions when he could. Despite his injuries, his tactical knowledge was impressive. He had been fighting for decades and knew every trick the Devourers used. They will come from 3 directions, he said as she placed the last of the explosives. The main entrance, the ventilation shaft, and they will try to burrow through the north wall. It is their pattern. How do you know all this? I have fought them many times. Always the same pattern. They are not creative, but they are persistent. Maria checked her weapon, a standard coalition assault rifle. She had 6 magazines of ammunition and a handful of grenades. Not much for a last stand, but she had worked with less. Tell me about your family, Keithavar said suddenly. Maria looked at him in surprise. Why? Because if we are going to die together, I would like to know more about the person who saved my life. Maria sat down on the floor next to his bed. My parents run that farm I told you about. My dad was a Marine, fought in the first colony wars. My mom is a doctor. I have 2 brothers and a sister, all younger. She smiled sadly. They think I'm crazy for joining the military. My mom wanted me to be a doctor like her. Why did you not? Because people need help out here. In the colonies on the frontier, someone has to patch up the soldiers and civilians who get caught in the fighting. She looked at him. What about you? Any family? I had a mate once, children. They died when the Devourers first attacked Zephyr. I have been hunting the creatures ever since. I'm sorry. It was long ago. The pain has faded, but the purpose remains. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, the sounds of movement were getting closer. The Devourers had found their scent. Maria, Kethvar said softly. Thank you for saving me, for treating me as family. I do not understand it, but I am grateful. Maria reached out and touched his good hand. His skin was warm and rough, like stone that had been sitting in the sun. You don't need to thank me. This is what people do for each other. Not my people. Then maybe it's time your people learned something new. A loud bang echoed through the bunker as something hit the main door. Then another. The Devourers had arrived. Maria stood and picked up her rifle. You ready for this? Kethvar struggled to sit up, and she helped him get into position behind a makeshift barricade. She handed him a plasma rifle, which he gripped with his one good hand. I am ready, he said. The banging on the door grew louder. Metal groaned and bent. Whatever was out there was very strong and very determined. Remember, Maria said, checking her grenades one more time. We fight together. Together, Kethvar agreed. The door exploded inward in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Dark shapes poured through the opening, moving on too many legs, making sounds that hurt to hear. Here they come, Maria whispered. She triggered the first explosive charge, and the bunker filled with the light of battle. The Devourers screamed as they died, but more kept coming. Always more. But Maria was not afraid. She had a job to do and a friend to protect. The alien warrior beside her was firing steadily, each shot finding its target despite his injuries. They were outnumbered and outgunned. They probably would not survive the night. But they were not alone. They had each other, and sometimes that was enough. The first wave of Devourers hit them like a black tide of claws and teeth. Maria had fought these creatures before, but never this many at once. They moved like liquid shadow, flowing around obstacles and attacking from impossible angles. North Wall! Kethvar shouted over the sound of gunfire. Maria spun and saw the wall bulging inward as something burrowed through from the other side. She triggered the explosive charge she had placed there, and the wall collapsed in a shower of concrete and alien screams, but more kept coming through the main entrance. The Devourers were the size of large dogs with 6 legs and mouths full of needle teeth. Their black skin seemed to absorb light, making them hard to see in the dim bunker. Fall back to position 2, Maria called out. She helped Kethvar move to the next defensive position while laying down covering fire. The alien warrior was impressive, even with only one working arm. His plasma rifle never missed, each shot taking down a Devourer with precise aim. How many of these things are there? Maria asked as she reloaded. Too many, Kethvar replied. They hunt in packs of 50 or more. A Devourer leaped at Maria from the shadows. She rolled aside and put 3 rounds center mass, dropping it before it could reach her. But the movement opened a gap in their defense, and 2 more creatures slipped through. One went for Kethvar, the other came for Maria. The creature attacking Kethvar made a mistake. Even wounded, the Zephyrian warrior was dangerous. He grabbed it with his good arm and crushed its skull against the wall. Blue blood splattered across the concrete. Maria was not so lucky. The Devourer hit her hard, knocking her rifle away and pinning her to the ground. Its claws raked across her armor, looking for weak spots. Its breath smelled like rotting meat and acid. She managed to get her sidearm out and put 2 rounds into its chest, but it kept coming. Devourers were tough. They could take a lot of damage before going down. The creature's claws found a gap in her armor at the shoulder. Pain shot through her as its claws dug deep. Maria screamed and fired again, this time putting a round through its head. The Devourer collapsed on top of her, its weight pinning her down. Maria. Kethvar's voice was full of panic. She pushed the dead creature off and tried to stand. Her left arm was not working right. Blood was running down inside her armor, warm and sticky. The shoulder wound was bad. I'm okay, she said, though they both knew it was a lie. More Devourers were coming through the breach in the north wall. Maria triggered another explosive, but there were too many of them. They were being overrun. We need to fall back to the final position, she said. The final position was the medical bay where they had started. It was the most defensible room in the bunker, but once they were trapped there, There would be no more retreating. Kethvar looked at her wounded arm. You cannot fight like that. Watch me. Maria switched her rifle to her good hand and started moving. It was awkward, but she could still shoot. They fell back through the bunker, fighting every step of the way. In the medical bay, Maria sealed the door and activated the emergency locks. It would not hold the Devourers for long, but it would buy them some time. Let me look at that wound, Kethvar said. Maria sat down and let him examine her shoulder. His touch was surprisingly gentle for such a large being. It is deep, he said. You are losing blood. I'll live. For now. Kethvar was quiet for a moment. Then he began tearing strips from his own clothing. You saved my life. Now I will try to save yours. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. He began bandaging her wound with careful precision. You have shown me something new, Maria Santos. You have shown me what it means to care for someone not of your blood. The door shuddered as the Devourers hit it from the other side. The metal was already starting to bend. In my culture, Kethvar continued as he worked, we have a concept called shield brothers. Warriors who have saved each other's lives in battle, who have proven they will die before they abandon each other. Sounds like good people to have around. They are the highest bond our society recognizes. Higher than family, higher than clan. Shield brothers are forever. The door was starting to buckle. Through the gaps, Maria could see claws and teeth working at the metal. Maria, Kethvar said, I know I am not human. I know we are different species, different worlds, different everything, but I would be honored to call you Shield Sister. Maria looked at this alien warrior who had been left to die by his own people, who had accepted it as honor until a stubborn human medic had refused to let him go, who was now willing to die beside her in a hole in the ground far from home. I'd be honored too, she said. The door gave way with a screech of torn metal. Devourers poured through the opening like a black flood. For Earth, Maria shouted, raising her rifle. For Zephyr, Kethvar replied. For each other, they said together. The battle was fierce but brief. Maria fought one-handed, using furniture and medical equipment as cover. Kethvar provided steady fire support, his plasma rifle cutting through the attacking creatures. But there were too many of them. Maria's ammunition ran out just as a devourer got past her guard. Its claws slashed across her chest, tearing through her armor like paper. She fell backward, blood running from multiple wounds. Her vision was getting fuzzy. She could hear Kethvar roaring in anger, still fighting despite his own injuries. A devourer stood over her, ready for the killing blow. Maria closed her eyes and thought of home, of cornfields and blue skies, of family dinners and Sunday mornings. The killing blow never came. Instead, she heard the sound of Coalition aircraft overhead. Rescue craft. Someone had tracked their distress signal. The Devourers heard it too and began to retreat. They were pack hunters, not stupid. They would not fight aircraft and ground troops at the same time. Maria opened her eyes and saw Kethvar leaning over her. His good arm was pressed against her chest wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Stay with me, Shield Sister, he said. Help is coming. Did we? Did we win? We survived. That is victory enough. Through the broken door, Maria could hear the sounds of Coalition forces landing, human voices shouting orders, the familiar whine of medical scanners. She looked up at Kethvar's glowing eyes. Thank you. For staying. For fighting with me. Thank you for teaching me what it means to have family again, he replied. The last thing Maria saw before the medics arrived was her shield brother's hand holding hers, alien and human, wounded and tired, but alive. They had found something in that bunker that neither of their species fully understood. Something worth fighting for. Something worth dying for. They had found each other. 3 weeks later, Maria woke up in a Coalition medical facility on the orbital station above Zerion Prime. Her shoulder was stiff and her chest ached, but she was alive. More importantly, she was not alone. Kethvar sat beside her bed, his broken arms now in healing casts. His crystalline armor had been replaced with simple Coalition medical garments that looked too small on his massive frame. "You are awake," he said. His English had gotten much better during their recovery. "How long was I out?" 2 days this time. The doctor said your body needed rest to heal properly." Maria tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through her chest where the devourer claws had torn through muscle and bone. "Easy," Kethvar said, helping her adjust the bed so she could sit upright. "The medics said you were very close to death when they found us. But we made it. Yes, we made it." Through the window, Maria could see the damaged surface of Zerion Prime below. The Coalition had won the battle, but at a heavy cost. The Devourers had been driven back, but they would return. They always returned. "Has anyone come to see you?" she asked. "Your unit?" Kethvar's expression darkened. "Yes, Squad Leader Vothram came yesterday." "What did he say?" "He was surprised to find me alive. He said I had brought shame to the unit by allowing myself to be rescued. That I should have died with honor in the crater." Maria felt anger rise in her chest. "And what did you tell him?" "I told him that I had learned the difference between honor and wisdom. That there is more courage in living for others than in dying for pride." Kethvar looked at her with those strange, glowing eyes. "I told him I was transferring to human forces." "You what?" "I have formally requested reassignment to your 3rd Medical Division. I want to learn more about human methods, about how you care for the wounded instead of abandoning them." Maria stared at him. "They'll never approve that. Cross-species assignments are almost unheard of." "Actually," a new voice said from the doorway, "they already have." Maria looked up to see Colonel Harrison, the commanding officer of the Human Expeditionary Force. He was a lean man with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too much war. "Colonel," Maria said, trying to come to attention in bed. "At ease, Sergeant. You've done enough for one mission." Harrison pulled up a chair. "I came to tell you that both of you are being recommended for the Coalition Cross of Valor, and to discuss your new assignment." "Sir?" "It seems that word of your little adventure has gotten around. The story of a human medic saving a Zephyrian elite warrior, and then fighting beside him as equals, has caused quite a stir in Coalition Command." Harrison looked at Kethvar. "Other Zephyrian warriors are asking questions. Why did the human risk everything to save someone she had never met? Why did she treat him as family? And why did he choose to stay and fight with her instead of following his cultural obligations?" "What kind of questions?" Maria asked. "The kind that make people think. We've had 17 formal requests from Zephyrian warriors asking to be assigned to human units. They want to learn our medical protocols, our evacuation procedures, our philosophy of leave no one behind." Maria looked at Kethvar in surprise. "Really? Your shield brother here has been quite vocal about human methods," Harrison continued. "He's been giving lectures to anyone who will listen about the tactical advantages of keeping wounded soldiers alive and in the fight." Kethvar straightened in his chair. "It is simply logical, Colonel. A wounded soldier who is healed can fight again. A dead soldier cannot." "Exactly. Which brings me to your new assignment." Harrison stood up. "Coalition Command is creating a new unit. Mixed species medical teams. Humans and Zephyrians working together to develop better battlefield medicine for all Coalition forces." "You want us to train together?" Maria asked. "I want you to lead the program. Both of you. Sergeant Santos, you'll be promoted to lieutenant and put in charge of training. Kethvar, you'll hold the equivalent rank in the new unit." Maria felt overwhelmed. "Sir, I'm just a medic. I'm not qualified to lead anything. You're qualified because you did something no one else has done. You showed an entire species that there's another way to think about honor and duty." Harrison smiled. "Besides, who else would I trust to keep these new mixed teams from killing each other during training?" After the colonel left, Maria and Kethvar sat in comfortable silence for a while. Through the window, supply ships were bringing relief to the surface. Coalition forces were already setting up new defensive positions. "So," Maria said finally, "what do you think? Ready to teach a bunch of stubborn aliens how to be medics? Are you ready to teach a bunch of stubborn humans how to work with beings who have 4 arms and completely different anatomy?" Maria grinned. "Should be interesting." "Indeed." Kethvar paused. "Maria, may I ask you something? When you found me in that crater, what made you stop? What made you decide to help?" Maria thought about it. "I heard you singing. It was so sad, so final, and I thought, here's someone who thinks he has to die alone. That's not right. Nobody should have to die alone. And now you don't have to. None of us do. Because we're going to teach everyone in the coalition that we're stronger together than we are apart. Kethvar reached out with his good arm and took her hand. Shield sisters forever? Shield sisters forever. 6 months later, the first mixed species medical unit graduated from training. Humans and Zephyrians working together, learning from each other, saving lives that would have been lost under the old system. The program was so successful that other species began asking to join. Soon there were Dreknari engineers working alongside human mechanics, Altarian scouts training with human reconnaissance teams, and Vraxian telepaths learning to coordinate with human communication specialists. Maria and Kethavar stood on the observation deck of the training facility, watching the newest class practice emergency procedures, humans and aliens working together with an efficiency that would have been impossible just a year ago. The Devourers are regrouping for another assault, Kethvar said, reading from a tactical report. Intelligence says they'll hit the Kepler system next month. Then we'd better be ready, Maria replied. We will be, all of us together. Below them, a human medic was showing a young Zephyrian how to treat a sucking chest wound. The alien's forearms made him incredibly fast at the procedure once he learned the technique. On another training mat, a Zephyrian instructor was teaching human soldiers the proper way to carry a wounded warrior with different anatomy. The humans struggled with the weight at first, but they were determined to learn. Maria watched it all with pride. They had started something here. Something that went beyond species, beyond culture, beyond the old ways of thinking. They had started a revolution, not with weapons or politics, but with the simple idea that everyone was worth saving, that no one should be left to die alone. You know what the best part is? Maria said. What? They're not human and alien anymore. They're not us and them. They're just soldiers, taking care of each other. Kethavar nodded. As it should be. In the distance, coalition ships were preparing for the next battle against the Devourers. But Maria was not worried. They had something now that they had never had before. They had learned to fight not just as separate species working together, but as one people united by a common cause. The Devourers would come, as they always did, but they would find something new waiting for them. They would find humans and aliens who refused to leave anyone behind, who treated every life as precious, who understood that the greatest strength came not from individual honor, but from standing together. They would find family, and family never gave up on each other.